Okay, Bay Buchanan, thank you so much for joining us for this interview with THA, the Treasury Historical Association. You've been a great contributor to our programs in the past, and this time we want to get it on record and um, use a few little bites to incorporate into our series on Women's History Month, which is coming right up. And you've played a big role in a big department there for many years. And we'd just like to hear your story and how you came to be there and what mentors or individuals or um, other helpful folks might have helped you to arrive at that exalted position with your signature on the currency.
It was, Julie, a great honor, I must say. And as you pointed out, I was 32. I was very young at the time, but I'd already had several fine people who mentored me and who really were the force behind my ending up where I did. Um, my brother has never been far behind me, always watching over me since college, guiding me, saying, now what are you going to do? And I'm like, I have no idea. And he's, why don't you go to graduate school? Why don't you go up to Canada? Why don't you check out something different? And he gave me some great advice along the way. I ended up, because of him, working on a presidential campaign, that of Richard Nixon's in 1972, and I got a taste for politics. And as they say, it's a bug, and you catch it and you can't get rid of it. It's such a high energy, exciting field. And at a very young age, I knew this is what I wanted to do. And it was my brother again who said, after I went to him and said, this is a wonderful way to live a life. And he said, I'll tell you what to do. Find a candidate you love. Don't try to figure out who's going to win. Try to figure out who you will love to work for. And I looked around and saw a man named Ronald Reagan. He wasn't running yet, but there was a lot of rumors out there. A few years later, he announced, and I did my best to get onto that campaign. And that was when he lost in 76, Julie. So I stayed with him 5 years. And when he announced for the 80 campaign, I was named his national treasurer of the campaign. And so that put me in a position where when he won the presidency, I asked him to name me Treasurer of the United States. So that's kind of my path into that position without my brother and without Ronald Reagan, a person I had such love for by the time I'd spent 5 years for him, working with him. Opportunity to work with him again was something I didn't want to miss out on. The country, though, was in a bit of a mess, economic disaster everywhere, high interest rates, inflation double digits, and yet we had such hope because he said we can turn it around, as he talked to the American people. And I believed it, and obviously they did too, because that's who actually ended up turning things around. And to be there as one of his spokespersons to travel the country, making the case for his economic plan, a small person in the big plan of things, but being there, a senior staff of Treasury around the table with Don Reagan, talking about the different policies and what we needed to do and where we were going, the success and defeats we were having along the way, and then to be out there traveling the country and speaking on his behalf was absolutely unbelievable experience.
Now, you mentioned the country was in a mess and you fixed it, or you all worked together to fix it, of course. And I do remember the end of the hostage crisis happening, like the day he was inaugurated. It was, yes. And so did you have that post at that point? I'm sure you were part of the whole community.
Was named within a couple days, maybe 1 or 2 days of his taking office. So I was not in office yet. And then, of course, it takes a month or two to be confirmed by the United States Senate when you're Treasurer of the United States. And so while I was going to the office at the Treasury building within days of his taking office, if not the day after he was inaugurated, So it was a very close, but you don't get to go walk into the office until the president walks in the Oval Office first. You come in behind him.
That's true. That's true. Well, what other big national historic events happened during those 5 years you were there?
First of all, you mentioned Olympic coins. When I took office, there's already been an enormous movement. The Senate was about to vote, if I remember correctly, if they hadn't already voted, to allow the Mint to produce Olympic coins, but then to have an international consortium market them. They would have made millions and millions of dollars on a monopoly that the U.S. government handed over to them. No one else can make U.S. currency, only the Mint. And so then we're going to let someone else market it and make a fortune. I was opposed to it. Don Reagan was opposed to it. A lot of powerful people were for it, including some in the White House. And so I spent the next several months working with Congress, trying to figure out how to slow this down so we could actually end up turning it around and presenting to Congress an opportunity for the Mint to do it and to show them that we could do it well. And we managed to do that and keep the marketing of the Olympic coins. It was a fabulously successful program, and I was very proud to be somebody that was able to stop the direction it was going and to actually turn it around and see that it was done in a very professional and successful manner.
Well, that is a story that we should listen to again and again, isn't it?
Isn't ever. And you know, I had never worked in government. As I indicated, I was quite young. I'd worked in presidential politics. And I show up, and within a day or two of being in office, I'm presented with some very powerful people whose names I know have already accomplished most of the work that needed to be done. And I'm like, holy smokes, how do we stop something that's well on its way to being accomplished? But we did it, and I learned fast that little people can make a difference, and you just keep talking and finding the people that can help you to make the case that this direction is not good and we have to stop it. But it was exciting. It was exciting. I was, testifying on the Hill about these coins, about what was happening, about the direction I thought it needed to go. And interestingly enough, I was often speaking for the administration, whose position was different than my personal one. So it was a little clever, had to move around, a little maneuvering there, but we did it.
Well, congratulations. That's a great story. When you were, obviously, this is a story that you like to tell because I've had a chance to hear it. Were there other accomplishments as treasurer that you felt like ranked up there with the importance of turning that project around?
What was very, very important that we did, and it got not a lot of play, but it was tough for me as somebody who's very conservative, it came to my attention immediately that the penny was being hoarded because if you melt it down and sell the copper, it was more valuable than a cent. And so it was an easy source for people just to hoard it, and people were melting it down and selling it. So no pennies were coming back our way, and so we were just mass producing them. It became clear we had to take the copper out of the penny. And, it's a tough thing to do. You're like, oh, it's the copper penny. How can we give up on the copper penny? But economically, it was foolhardy to keep this up. And so that's something I worked with Congress with, moved ahead, got legislation, came up with alternatives, worked, obviously, the people at the Mint knew which direction to go in, put a little zinc in there. And so it didn't look that much different, but it wasn't a copper penny anymore. That was another thing. I'll tell you another thing that I became aware of almost immediately as well. I oversaw savings bonds, which was a great program for small savers. You could $10, and within a certain period, it would be worth 20. So people saved their money. I knew somebody who put money away every single payroll, put money into savings bonds, and sent his child to college on it. So it was a way you could just save a little at a time. But over the years, the interest being paid on savings bonds was atrocious compared to double digits everywhere else. And so there was movement in Treasury just to kill it. But I looked into it, worked with an assistant secretary, and they said, no, don't kill it, because it's a program that allows small savers to save, and they take it out of their payroll, which a lot of people, you might not save otherwise. And so I worked with individuals, this assistant secretary in particular, and we got legislation passed that allowed us to make the interest rate on savings bonds variable, which made it a very good program for small savers. So I was very proud of that we allowed to keep these small savers, have this great little program for them, and to turn it into something that made us proud.
Well, that sort of taps into the work that Treasury is doing now on financial literacy. Is that something that was underway when you were in office?
No, I don't remember any conversation about the literacy program, literacy.
Yeah, that may have happened a little later on, right? Right. But you were the early version of that, right? If you were encouraging people to save and making it financially incentive, yeah.
Absolutely, very much so. And I must say, I've always felt, I said a little bit earlier, to come aboard Treasury, I was an accountant, I was a controller, I was a treasurer, I was not an economist. And yet I was there at a time when the President's economic program was the most important aspect of his administration at that point. And in fact, at the White House meetings, they've said our whole focus has to be with Treasury and spearheading this program, because this is what we promised. This is what the American people need most of all right now. And I walked into that office, the first meeting, senior staff meeting with Don, Reagan, Julie. I had no idea what anyone was talking about. I'm like, uh-oh, I'm in over my head. But I was determined to be part of this movement to turn the country around by explaining to people and educating people everywhere I was asked to speak, to just talk to them simply about this is what it means and this is why it'll work, and to build that kind of support he needed to get the program through the House and the Senate. And I met with other assistant secretaries, had lunch with them, asked them all the questions. I have an older brother at the time who was who knew a lot about financial affairs of the country. He was a broker, stockbroker. And I would call him and I'd say, what is happening? What are they talking about? And he said, read the Wall Street Journal, the back page every day, call me with every question. Well, every day I had that thing circled. Every editorial I had read, not understanding it initially, but within about 3 or 4 weeks, I was beginning to put it together, and then having lunch with my assistant secretary saying, how does the president's plan address this? How about this? That within a few months, I was able to speak specifically to this economic plan, to make a case for it, to be an advocate, and to even do press conferences around the country after my speeches, explaining why this will be good for the American people. And I felt, while I was just a tiny little, I was just a little person in this big, big movement, that as Treasury of the United States, I was able to contribute my share to this effort to turn the country around. And the president's plan worked, as you know. And in the country, the people benefited. And the reason it worked was because, as the president said, I'm going to give you the policies that will make it work so your businesses will grow. But if you don't grow them, build them, invest in them, I can't turn it around. And they believed him and they did it. It was an amazing partnership. And the Treasury was right there, point person, on moving this forward.
How exciting. How exciting. Was it a sort of a source of satisfaction, like you took on this big challenge and you were able to succeed?
It was, because it was, of course, I consider it one of my greatest accomplishments, simply because I went from ground zero, knowing nothing, not understanding what anyone was saying as they talked M1, M2 through these Treasury meetings. But, and it's something I always try to share when I have spoken subsequently to young women especially, is that, I took a job where I knew that I was a good manager. I had been the treasurer of a whole campaign. We had people across the country, offices everywhere, and I did well. I knew that I had great confidence in my abilities as an administrator. And half my job at Treasury, well, it could have been all my job, was administrative. I was in charge of engraving and printing and the mint, the manufacturing part of the government. But I took the job also because there was this element of it, the side where treasurers are often asked to speak, that I would have an opportunity to be an advocate. And I'd never done that before. And I'll be honest, those first 6 months, I was a terrible speaker. I was so boring that I upset myself, and I knew, I said, I got to learn this because I'm not doing the job I need to do. And I really worked at it, and at the same time learned my material so that I could be very versatile. And I like to tell young girls, the next job, don't reach across, go up, go higher. Try to find something that has some aspect to it that's going to be a challenge. Because that's how you grow, that's how you learn, that's how you gain enormous confidence. Because you take on something that, day one you feel like, uh-oh, I think I may be in deep water. But then you just tackle it. How do I tackle it? I call my brother, I talk to assistant secretaries. They were so happy to show me and help me understand the supply side, economics that they had been teaching and advocating for years. So I really became an integral part of the Treasury's effort. And I was very proud that I was able to accomplish that. I really was. And that spearheaded me on to continue as an advocate, as a speaker for the things that I believed in both media and in different positions that I took afterwards.
So that is Bay's perseverance talk, right?
Well, you never give up. I learned that when you raised with 7 brothers and a sister, a house with all these big brothers, you better not give up. The key is not to be hesitant, but to think, okay, I admit I don't know this, but I also know I can learn it. The key is that you will find the answer. You will get the answer. You can say, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with that. Nobody minds and I don't know. But don't spin it.
Good advice for everybody, right? Not just candidates. So, was there one most memorable day during your service that really jumps out?
Well, there was 2 very frightening days. Of course, we were in office only a few months when there was an attempt on the life of the president, and the assassination attempt. And I remember I was in office. It was later in the day, and Ronald Reagan, who was my boss, he was Secretary of Treasury, called me immediately. His Secret Service had immediately notified him, and he picked up the phone and called me because he knew that I had spent the last 5 years of my life working for Ronald Reagan, and he didn't want me to see it or hear it in any other way. And I had nothing but such enormous respect for him already. But that, my love grew that day enormously, that he would keep that in mind so that I could recognize what had happened and prepare myself as the days went by as to what might happen. The other day, of course, was how far was I from the 14th Street Bridge when that plane crashed? I was, right on the 14th Street Bridge. I was in the office. Now, those were unrelated to Treasury per se, but they were memorable days to be in that office. And remember, the next day I had to fly out, and it was the same flight. And I ended up sitting next to a congressman who I didn't know at the time was a congressman. And he said, I've never seen anyone with whiter knuckles than you. Because a few months later, I was testifying before him. And he was a Democratic congressman. He said, hey, Bay, I was the one on your right. Scary, scary days. But they were good days. They were, it was a great team that worked very, very well together at Treasury. And, we had a lot of celebration. In the things that we were able to accomplish, but it was hard work. It was really, you just had to put your head to the grindstone and push through, because a lot of issues came across our table, a lot of them in all of Treasury, clearly, but even over my table came across many issues that you have to address.
So how do you top that? What did you do when you decided to leave the Treasury?
Interesting enough, I got married, had a baby while I was treasurer, and my husband lived in California. And so I had to commute for the first year of our marriage, and then for another 6 months when the baby was little, because I told him when we married, I guess I married after I'd been there a little over a year. And then I said, but I will not leave before 2.5, 3 years. And so I stayed that period of time. And then I moved to California and raised my kids for a number of years there. I've had a good life. I've had an interesting life. The fact that I found my love early in life in the sense of politics and issues, I realized at a very young age that I'm an activist at heart, that I want to be involved in something where I can make a difference. The money did not interest me anywhere close to being with something where every morning I could get up and say, we got another challenge or another push to get something done here, to move ahead. And that's what I've done all my life is work for causes. And it's been very rewarding.
Tell us about some of the causes that you mentioned that you speak a lot to young girls and women's organizations. Tell us more about that.
That has been another great joy in my life. After leaving Treasury, I did do some television. I did work. My brother ran for president some years later. I chaired his campaigns, his three presidential campaigns, I should say. But along the way, I picked up some opportunities in the media. And I've worked for most every presidential candidate, mostly as a spokesperson for them on television. And I think the one of the things that was most rewarding is that I have spent years going to college campuses and talking to young people, often conservatives, but equally as often the liberals that are on campus, anyone who would be willing and interested in speaking, and to debate them, to take up an issue and debate them. And I would say, look, debating is the real key. It firms up your own beliefs. You open your mind to other ideas and you listen to the other side. Then you try to make a case against it, surely. But how many times have I listened to the other side and said, that is an excellent point, and had to reconsider my position. And I find it's a very invigorating and worthwhile exercise, because the power and strength by having courage of your convictions can carry you through life. To know what you believe, to be proud of what you believe, and not to be afraid of having someone disagree with you, but wanting to hear the other side, because it firms up your own beliefs, or it makes you think that maybe you need to open up your mind to a different idea. And so when I speak to young people, I like to challenge them. I throw out as tough an argument as I can make, and then I said, okay, take me on, come on. And I think it's an extraordinarily healthy exercise, because it does build in one a confirmation of what they believe and what's important. What are they willing to go out front and stand tall for? And then to build up to such an extent where they really can say, I have the courage of my convictions. I'm not thrown off by people who disagree. I have studied this, and I'm just as certain as I can be that this country should move in this direction. And to want to tell that to other people, not to be then afraid, not want to talk to anybody, but to stand tall. You make a difference then. You can change lives by touching hearts, but you can't change any direction or any individual or give them the kind of inspiration to be stronger if you keep your mouth shut. And that's what I've done for years and years with great success, in the sense that years later, someone will come up to me, I heard you talk and you changed my life. And I think, oh, okay, you've made my week, if not my year.
Oh, maybe you could just speak a little bit to your involvement with the THA, the Treasury Historical Association. Was it active when you were, when you were in the building, there was some stuff going on?
It was present. And I remember I would talk to, they would come over and they would talk to me about the Historic Society. But it was separate. They were trying to do something. It wasn't, I know that they were working, I believe at the time they may have been working on, is it the cash room? and turning the ceiling back and or pulling out, making the gold obvious again. Isn't that what they worked on? I believe it was the cash room that they were trying to renovate, which was very exciting, and they showed it to me and all. The building is so unique. I mean, I remember the first day I went up there and saw my office. I said, what in the world? This place is amazing. They're not built like that anymore. It really is a spectacular historic building in the city.
Yes, yes, it sure is. And I'm so impressed with the work that the organization has done over many, many years to bring it back to some of its original luster and beauty. So, Bay, I have a question about when you're speaking around the country and maybe teaching some debate skills as you go along. Do you notice any interest in sort of reviving an interest in learning civics, and particularly since you were at Treasury, maybe what we might term financial civics?
It doesn't come up, Julie, to be honest, simply because I'm usually seen as the political advocate for a certain position, and whether I'm invited to campus to talk about different things. Often it's about the economy, but often it's about much more of the issues that are controversial in the country today, and so it doesn't come up. But I will say that personally, it is really important, because the young people are not getting it in the schools as we did. When I travel around the country, and I've spoken for so many different groups who address young people, and I do adults too, but I love the kids, and that has been predominantly what I've done. And I've seen enormous benefit where at different times they'll have a group that comes in to learn to write. How do you speak on television? How do you do radio? How do you write a column? And then other ones that'll come together and just have speakers about conservative philosophy. And these young people who aren't, where could they get 3 days of speakers talking about all kinds of different philosophy concerning the conservative movement, if you like. And they really learn an enormous amount, and they're very much energized by it, and they meet people of like minds, and they go back to their campuses and they're excited about sharing it or debating it or whatever, joining clubs. And I think that's what you all are trying to do here, is just that, to start reaching out and maybe bringing young people together and to start teaching this in some way to reach them. I've seen the benefits of that kind of a program, and it's enormous. Kids just take it in. They're looking for something that's meaningful,